Je vous rappelle que cette
May I remind you that this press conference will take place without any flash photography, please. So welcome to this press conference. Our guests have now joined us, and I'll introduce them.
Notre traducteur.
We have the translator at the far end of the table and co-producer. Thank you for that piece of information. Khaled MOUZANAR, who we knew as a musician. He composed the music for all of Nadine LABAKI's film before working on this film. And in addition to being the musician, he's the producer. On my left, Yordanos, SHIFERAW, who you've no doubt recognized. She is an actress. She plays the part of Rahil, the mother of Jonas. The character is Ethiopian. She went to Lebanon at the age of 20 and was found by the casting director in 2016. To the left of the director, you will have recognized the smile and this extraordinary look. Zain al-RAFEEA, the real hero of this odyssey. He's called Zain, like the character who comes from Syria and who went to Lebanon, and he also was found by the casting director in 2016. You will have understood that these two actors have not played in any other films. And of course, I'd like to introduce Nadine LABAKI, who's a child of Cannes, because as of 2005, she was in residence for a writing studio. She wrote Caramel, presented in 2007 at the Director's Fortnight. And then Where Do We Now Go, which was at Un Certain Regard in 2011. Yesterday evening, her next feature film, CAPHARNAUM, was screened. In accordance with tradition, I'll ask the same question, the first question to the director, and then you'll have the floor. Nadine, this third film, in my view, is a turning point in your career. Could you explain how the idea occurred to you to make this film in terms of the topic and also the filming and the screenplay? Well, things were a bit back to front in this film. The film was rooted in several topics I wanted to address. Topics which, when I wrote the screenplay, had become a sort of an obsession. I was thinking about several different situations in life. The title of the film really occurred to me before I'd even written the first line of the screenplay. I got together with my co-script writers, Khaled, and my husband also, who's involved in writing my films. And as usual, we talked about what my next film would talk about, what themes were my obsession at the time. And Khaled said to me, well, we'll write down all the themes you want to talk about. So we talked at length, and suddenly I looked at the list and I thought, it's a CAPHARNAUM. And that's how the title of the film came. It was the beginning of a real adventure. I wanted to talk about the system, which in my view isn't working very well. And in my research work, I also thought that we could think about some alternative system to the issues of mistreated children, immigrants, migrant workers, modern slavery, the idea of borders. a piece of paper which determines your entire life and gives you a real existence and a status. All these things that I address in the film. Without papers, people are totally excluded from the system. And that's the problem of all the people in the film. No one has an ID card. Everyone is illegal in the country. At the end, Zain ends up getting a passport. In fact, these characters had been residing illegally in the country, and just a piece of paper acquires an absurdly huge importance. I have a question for Mrs. LABAKI. Congratulations on this very beautiful film. Could you talk about your work with your DOP, please? In fact, Christopher Aoun was my DOP, and I had been dreaming about working with him when I was writing the screenplay. I said to myself, I dreamt of the DOP before doing the screenplay and before really getting going on the film. We gave a huge amount of thought to the film and to how we should approach it. We talked about how we should go about the shooting with non-professional actors. I knew that the shooting would take a lot of time. It would be very difficult. It was therefore very important for me to find someone who would throw himself body and soul into the film without ever calling into question what we were doing. It would have been possible to wonder what on earth we were doing. We did lots of improvisation. We did all sorts of things that were totally unplanned and unexpected. And luckily, the whole of the crew was behind me. I was very lucky. I had a very solid film crew, which helped me to embark on this adventure and go right through to the end. It took 6 months to shoot things. We had over 500 hours of rushes. The first version of the film lasted 12 hours. With Christopher, we didn't even need to talk to each other. We just, it was like a kind of a dance. You can see it in the making of. The whole crew
c'était une chorégraphie continue pour pouvoir ruser.
Was doing sort of an ongoing choreography in order to follow these people. It's hard to shoot a film with children. Jonas is only 1 year old. When we did the shooting, Jonas, who in fact is a girl called Treasure, didn't even have a name during the shooting. So, rather, he was just 1 year old when we shot the film. There are several cameras? Yes, there are several cameras. So what we had to do was just to adapt according to what the baby did. We are the ones who had to adapt to the characters and not the other way around. There was a structured screenplay, but that was just the starting point. And as of that starting point, we improvised a huge amount. We filmed the children when they slept, woke up, ate, cried. We really had to be very attentive to what they were in real life. You can see it in the film. The kids don't act. They're just themselves. And that also entailed a very close cooperation with the DOP. We had to achieve this, and while being as discreet as possible, we just had to adapt as much as possible to the kids.
My question is also for Nadine. I'd like to know, how did you draw out such a magnificent performance from Zain? Or maybe he is just a natural, the greatest actor of all time.
Yes, he is just the most amazing actor of all time. I think for me also, we found, the casting director found Zain on the street. We did a wild casting. I don't know if we say wild casting, casting sauvage in French. On the street casting. So I had an amazing crew of people who were really looking for these kids everywhere, or for every actor in the film, really everywhere in life. So they used to go to the most difficult places, regions in Lebanon, looking for these characters that sometimes, you know, I would wonder. The first time I was sitting with my casting crew and I was explaining to them who Zain is on paper. I was describing in a very precise way how Zain should look like and how he should be. I was wondering inside myself, I'm asking them a mission impossible. It's impossible to find that kid. It's impossible to find all these features in just one person. He has to be smart and beautiful and has sad eyes and is street smart, because this is what he lives. He has to be a little bit smaller than what his real age is, and that's how it is now. I mean, when I was explaining all the characters, I needed to find also Yordanos, which is a kid that is also a year old, and at the moment of the film, he should be making his first steps, so he can't be really walking very well, and he has to be, of course, amazing, and we have to be able to adapt to how he is. And it was like a sort of a mission impossible. I was really telling myself, what am I asking them? We're never going to find these people, and we found them, and they did a great job. The casting director was just amazing in how she's here. Jennifer, she really did an amazing job. And so, yes, I mean, there was sort of, I don't know, a blessing, something that was really pushing us to make this film the way it was made. And, yeah.
Ici, bonjour,
Good morning. Belgian TV, congratulations to you all. A question to Nadine. Zain says at the end that parents who can't bring up a child shouldn't be allowed to have children. Did you have this thought in mind when you began the film, or did it occur to you when you were writing the screenplay? And I'd like to know what you think about the welcome given the film and the rumors that it will get the Golden Palm. This idea occurred to me as I was researching the various topics. The basis of the film is a long search, really. I'm not personally familiar with the topics addressed in the film. I wasn't an ill-treated child. This is a topic I don't really know personally. So in order to be consistent and to fully reflect what these children go through, and to also convey with power this major cause, I had to plunge into the situation. The film provides a lot of home truths. There are very few things in the film you can really condone. And I wanted to research things in minute detail. We did a lot of research work, therefore, before writing the film. For me, it was important to be very close to the reality, what these children actually experience in the streets. And mistreated children, ill-treated children. We visited a lot of difficult areas in Lebanon. We spent a lot of time with children. We went to the juvenile prison, detention center. We went to see NGOs that try to help these kids in difficulty. And this final statement is inspired by the answers I got to all the questions asked. In 99% of the cases, when you ask these children, are you happy to have been born, they all say no. I'm not pleased to be here. Why was I born? Why am I here? Why did you bring me into existence? Why, parents, did you have me if you aren't able even to love me, if you can't respect my most basic rights? If you're going to throw me into the street, well then, why did you have me in the first place? It's a huge anger that wells up, a sense of revolt. We held long discussions, and the kids didn't say after just 5 minutes, they didn't say this. You have to get to know them. They have to trust you. And bit by bit, the idea of this court case came to me very naturally. It appeared self-evident. It had to be a child who's going to try and sue his parents for having him in the first place. Because he says, you don't love me, you can't love me. Why did you have me then? Why did you have me at all?
Thank you. Yes, the casting was really terrific in this film. Even the one-year-old baby, I wanted to know your process. Oh, Chaz Ebert, Chicago Sun-Times, and RogerEbert.com. What was your process for working with that one-year-old incredible baby? And I'd also like to know from Zain and Yordanos how their time acting for the first time was.
The process for me was really very simple. I have to adapt to this one-year-old kid. We were shooting for, sometimes, I don't know how the crew managed to just handle this. We had takes of sometimes over 1 hour of one single take. Just with everybody, with the booms and the camera, and everybody just keeping quiet and just being au service. I don't know how you say au service. Just being there to capture that moment that we are looking for, that specific look, or that specific twitch, or that specific moment of this kid. So it was very, very tiring for the crew to be invisible and at the same time to be very patient, to wait for that special moment that we are looking for. And that was the process, really adapting ourselves to this kid. And it was, for me, her real name in life is Treasure. And for me, she was our treasure in the film. She was a treasure. And I don't know how she was able to be, I mean, sometimes we were wondering, how can she possibly do this? How can she possibly do the same take again and go through the same process? And sometimes it would happen. She would exactly do the same thing that we were asking for her like 2, 3, 4 times. I don't know, sometimes I was wondering if there was something bigger than us helping us in doing that film. And but it was mainly us adapting to them than the contrary, than them adapting to a story.
La question portait aussi à Zain.
The question was also addressed to Zain. Could he tell us what it was like to be an actor for the first time?
Il dit qu'il a sommeil, en fait.
He said he was feeling very tired, very sleepy.
C'est facile.
It's easy.
كيف كنا نشتغل؟ فسرنا شوي كيف كنا نشتغل، كيف شو كنت أقول لك، شو كنت خبرك، هيك الشيء.
كنت خبرني يكون زعلان أو مشهد تكون مبسوط أو مشهد هيك أو مشهد هيك.
Ok, tout simplement. Elle me demandait des fois d'être triste ou des fois d'être.
Sometimes I was told to be sad or to be happy. That's all. It was simple.
Alors la question c'est.
The question was, now I'm translating this for the journalist. The question was as follows. What was the most difficult scene to play?
ولا مشهد.
Aucun.
There was no difficult
He's a
scene.
natural-born actor. Well, what can we say? He has the process.
Et pour vous, Yordanos?
And for you, Yordanos?
Bonjour, Gabriela Bravo de Radio.
Pour vous, Yordanos, est-ce que vous pouvez...
For you, Yordanos, could you talk to us about this experience, the shooting of the film? Was it difficult?
C'est quelque chose auquel vous attendez?
Is this something that was complicated? Was there a particularly difficult scene?
انه يكون هين او صعب شو كان صعب عليك وكيف
شو كان أكثر مشهد صعب بالتصوير؟
اوكي ميرسي كثير اول شيء.
Elle vous remercie beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
صورنا بالسجن كثير صعب.
Ce qu'on a filmé en prison était le plus difficile
What
pour elle.
we filmed in prison was the most difficult part for me.
لانه خلت حدا يعرف هيدي الحقيقه مش فيلم، هيدي حياتي انا.
Elle veut remercier Nadine
I want to thank Nadine
qui lui a permis de raconter sa propre histoire.
because I was thus able to tell my own story through this character.
كثير صعب لانه وقت بالسجن عم نصور، وقت بشوف رفقاتي كنت صعب علي، كنت عن جد عم ببكي مش كرمال الفيلم.
Quand elle pleurait dans le film, c'était pour de vrai.
When my character cried in the film, it was really me crying. It was really true.
لانه ما عندي كنت ورقه.
Après avoir tourné la scène d'arrestation,
After shooting the scene when I was arrested, 3 days later, I was really arrested and I experienced exactly the same thing.
بس بتمنى للناس اللي بيحضروا هيدا الفيلم يعرفوا انه حقيقة، بتمنى لممثلين غير مثل نادين بيكشفوا حقيقة. هاي حقيقة بالنسبة لي، حياتي عم بعيشها بسبب الشغل ولا الحبس، كل شي حياتي أنا.
je voudrais vous dire
I'd like to say that everything you saw is my real life.
من فيلم ومن حياتي شخصيا، بس لأنه أنا ما جبت ولد.
La seule différence, c'est que
The only difference is that I haven't yet had a baby.
Dans la vie aussi, Yordanos n'avait pas de papier pendant...
Yordanos didn't have an ID card. She'd been living illegally in the country for a long time. What really happened, the prison where we shot that scene, well, she was very moved when she went there. We worked in a real prison, and she met some of her real friends who, when we were shooting the film, had truly been thrown into prison. She was deeply moved. And as she said, this was her own personal experience, practically. That's why it is also real and true in the film.
بس أنا وقت تعرفت عليهم انبسطت كتير، لأنه قصة الزين شخصيتي وقت طفلتي، ما كنت بحياتي اجتمعت مع حدا. بالتصوير كنت كتير مبسوطة، كلهم كاستينج كنت عم بيحسسوني كأنه أنا عندي عائلة. عن جد بدي أشكرهم كتير.
Pendant le tournage, j'étais très heureuse.
During the shooting, I was very happy. I was so well treated. They treated me as though I was part of the family.
بعدين بعد ما سجنت بدي أشكر لمستر خالد، وهني زبطوا لي ورقة تبعي، ما عندي ورقة، هني طلعوني من حبس، لهيك ميرسي كتير.
Quand je me suis fait en prison.
When I was arrested, I spent 2 weeks in prison. I'd like to thank Khaled, who ensured that I would be released as quickly as possible and could therefore start shooting the film again. And I was arrested because I had no ID cards. I think it's very stupid to be thrown into prison because you don't have a piece of paper. It's not because you've killed someone, it's not because you've stolen something or hurt someone, it's just because you don't have a piece of paper. It's quite disgusting.
Bonjour, Gabriela Bravo.
Gabriela Bravo from Chile. I wanted to know
avec la pauvreté et la misère sont tombés.
Your views on poverty and abject poverty. How did you manage to portray this without becoming maudlin in a way?
Je pense que c'est le travail de
Well, I think
très minutieux.
it's because we did a huge amount of very detailed research work.
C'est très dur, c'est pas
It's really tough.
c'est pas un dosage facile à trouver, mais
It's not easy to find a happy balance.
la recherche qu'on a fait
We did a huge amount of research work, and we truly wanted to depict the truth. We didn't want to intervene in any way. We wanted to intervene as little as possible in these people's lives. Maybe that enabled me to find just this happy balance. Basically, I felt I was in the service of what I was seeing. I was there as an observer. Together with my script writers, we tried to intervene as little as possible. We didn't want to fantasize things. The question kept cropping up. Would this have really happened in truth? Would this have taken place in this same manner? That's what guided us when we were filming the film. We tried, in fact, to really stand back and not intervene in any way. These people are so very true and real, and they are the ones who really imposed themselves on us in the film. There was a very sophisticated balancing act in terms of fiction and reality. For example, the scenes at court, when one of the characters spits at me in the face. I thought to myself, well, that's what she really thinks about me. That's what she's experienced in life. She's not just saying what was written down in the script. She's saying what she really feels. She started to speak out. And what she said was her truth. It's this play between fiction and reality that perhaps enabled me not to just display some kind of maudlin poverty. Belgian TV, thank you for the film. Following on what you said, the scene in the court, and that's perhaps the scene that's most contrived compared with others. I imagine it was difficult to shoot this scene in the same style as the rest of the film, but was it legally plausible for this child to sue his parents, or was that a sort of a fable? Yes, I think this is a fable to a degree. It's very symbolical. A child in life could never sue his or her parents for the simple reason that you can't sue your guardian, so to speak, and the guardians are the mother and the father, so legally speaking, it would be impossible to sue them. A child cannot sue his own parents. In the film, it's very symbolical, this scene, obviously, but we had to add this symbolic dimension. This is why he calls the media when he's in prison. That makes everything a bit more plausible. It's via the media that which turned it into a real scoop that things look believable. Of course, it's a double-edged situation. Sometimes it's positive. It could also be viewed as negative. However, the TV took an interest in the child, and it's thanks to that that he was able to raise his voice, and the media in general, of course. By making this phone call, the media latched onto the story, and thus the child was able to be heard in court, thanks to pressure exerted by the media, by TV, on the court.
Question.
Hi, I'm Ruby from Australia. I just wanted to know if you can talk a little bit about the editing, because I thought the editing was amazing, and the process of editing.
The editing process took a very long time. We've been editing for the past year and a half, and I have an amazing family. We ended up creating a family around us that were just, giving everything. We were at the last stages of the editing. We were practically working 24 hours, like by shifts. So we are able to finish the edit on time. And it's a very difficult process because we had 500 hours of rushes. So we had to dig into these 500 hours of rushes, what was the most intense, what was the most interesting. And then the first version of the film was of 12 hours. We had a 12-hour film in the beginning that we could, you can watch. It was difficult to watch, but you can watch. And then slowly it started shrinking, and then we ended up having a 2-hour film. And we did a lot of also what we call test screenings. So we can understand more what is the perception of somebody who sees the film for the first time. It was very important for me that I listen to how people perceive that film, because when we are doing a film, we are so much into the process that there's no way that we have the distance that we need in order to know. I mean, I will never be as pure, as fresh as somebody who's watching this film for the first time. It's impossible for me to have this kind of distance. So it was very important for me to do those test screening. We did a lot of those. I mean, the crew at the end had enough of listening to everybody giving their opinion about the film. But it was very important for me to listen to lots of different opinions, lots of different people coming from lots of different backgrounds to understand the perception. And also, it was difficult to just find the right dosage. And one of my editors is actually here, Laure, and she was Laure Gardet, who worked on a lot of French films also. And my other editing partner, Constantine Brock, who's unfortunately not here, I mean, they gave everything. I was so blessed. I'm blessed with my family, with my. It's not a crew for me. It's a family. What we've created, it just is very rare. Of people just giving everything for this film because they believe in it.
We actually did the film at home.
Yeah, practically.
Practically at home, and we did everything from the production to the post-production. Everything was done home.
Mais si la première version faisait 12 heures...
If the first version lasted for 12 hours, boiling it down to 2 hours consisted in eliminating a lot of scenes. Did you have to eliminate whole segments of the story? Yes, we had to sacrifice whole segments. I don't know, maybe one day if we make a TV series, we'll be able to show everything. But indeed, there were a lot of parts which I found it very hard to remove. The story of Rachel before she meets Zain, we filmed all that, but in the film you only see the time when she actually met him. But you have her history, her story as well, before she met Zain, which no longer appears in the film. So there are lots of segments we had to eliminate entirely. It's difficult for me to judge. It's difficult to know whether I regret things or not. It's hard to say whether I took the right decision. You can always call yourself into question, of course. Obviously, I had to stop asking myself these questions. We had the Cannes deadline. We had to submit the final version 2 days before the screening. Yet we were still calling everything into question. Thank you very much. Thank you for this magnificent film. I come from Taiwan. You convey strong messages in this film, and I'd like to ask how you view the role of artists in our society.
Je pense, un rôle extrêmement important.
I think we have a very important part to play. We have a lot of responsibility as artists. This is not the case of everyone. You can't make general statements, of course, but for me, art and engagement go hand in hand. I truly believe in the power of art. I believe that art can trigger change. I think politics need a lot of art to change the way of looking at things. For me, art and engagement are intertwined. So we have a huge responsibility, particularly when you live in such a difficult region as the Middle East, where nothing is going well. For years and years now, there have been many, many issues, problems, and a lot remains to be done. When Zain has the impression that the future of the world will be decided in the Middle East. I think an artist, well, it's hard not to feel engaged when you realize to what extent art can truly change things. For some people, it may sound naive to say that art can change things, but I deeply believe it's possible. If art doesn't actually change something, at least it opens the debate, and I think that's a first step.
Bonjour, Ladam Savi, Cinema Daily Newspaper, Iran.
I come from Iran. I'd like to congratulate you because I haven't seen children acting so well since The White Ribbon. Your film is a bit bitter. Do you view the world as so sad? Are you deeply pessimistic? Do you think things can change? Is there some way out? Do you truly believe that everything is as bitter as that? Do I think there's a solution? No. Well, there must be some solution. But what's necessary is the willpower, the desire to truly change things, and that's what's missing. That's what's missing in the world, at government level, in terms of justice, in society. What's missing is the will to change things. How can I put this? We're not effective. We feel helpless, perhaps. We feel so very helpless. And some people think that given that, it's best to be like an ostrich and stick our heads in the sand. What about children's rights, for example? Children's rights stipulate that they have a right to identity, they have a right to education, they have a right to food, to love, they even have the right to some place to play. All that's set out in the Convention on the Rights of the Child. But what are we doing with this convention? Who is supervising things? Who's ensuring it's being implemented? Who is checking to see whether the most basic needs of these children are met when they're born? Nobody's there. These are just laws. They're conventions written on a piece of paper so that we adults sleep better at night, so that our consciences are at rest. But is there a real desire to change things? I'm not sure there is. I think up until now, people have just averted the situation. They don't want to look at the truth squarely, and I think it's hard to look at the truth. It's hard to realize that there are so many children. Just in Lebanon, for example, there are thousands and thousands of children who are born and die without anyone knowing because they've never been registered. Nobody knows they exist. They are totally excluded from the system. They're invisible. So nobody knows what's happening to these children because they don't even exist officially. Often, these children are totally neglected. These children have to fend for themselves. Nobody takes care of them. Nobody talks to them. These kids don't talk. They don't look at us squarely in the face. They don't play. If you give a toy to these kids, they don't even pick up the toy. They don't laugh. They don't smile. They don't cry. They don't play. They don't sing. They don't dance. These are kids who don't have any feelings. They don't seem to react anymore. They've been so totally neglected. Nobody touches them. Nobody looks at them. Nobody loves them. They just have to fend for themselves. They're thrown into the streets like objects, and life is supposed to take care of them, and it's a fact of life.
Oui, c'est Brian Johnson de Maclean's.
Brian Johnson, Maclean's, Canada.
Thank you very much for an amazing film. You're right on the frontier, opening up this frontier between drama and documentary. Were you inspired by any particular other films with your methods and techniques? Did you feel you were really blazing new ground here? And will you continue in this vein in your future filmmaking in terms of pushing further, outside of making things up, really? And one quick factual question: what age were the two children when you were shooting?
I'm going to start by answering this one. When we were shooting, Zain, who's completely asleep now, was 12 when we were shooting. Now he's 13. And Yordanos was, Treasure in Life, was almost a year, no? She was almost 1 year old. And there wasn't one inspiration for me. I've always felt this, the power of reality in a film. How, when you're watching people that you can easily identify with, I think it's the way to start really thinking about what you're seeing, and really, because it's not, you feel like it's not a fiction. It's reality, and I think it's a way to start maybe being more and more aware of the problem, and more it's not only a fiction, and these are only actors, and I'm gonna come out of the movie theater and thinking these are actors and this is not real life. I'm not saying it's a great school, but it's a school I'm personally not drawn to for the moment. For the moment, I'm interested in going even further in reality. How can I push it further? How can I be even more invisible as a filmmaker, and just be observing of these people, of this reality? This is something that interests me, because I feel like it's ordinary people are just as interesting as actors, and ordinary life is as interesting as any fictional story that I can come up with. And I'm so thankful to my producer and husband, and who allowed such an adventure for me. He allowed me to be able to do that, to be able to shoot for 6 months, and to be able to shoot again and again and again. And sometimes we would shoot a scene after 3 months. We would go back to the same scene because it's not as real as I wanted it to be. And the fact that we were shooting chronologically also most of the time. So you see Zain growing, you see his hair growing, you see him maturing. And the actors at the end of the shoot, when we shot the court at the end, were just so aware of what they have lived through the film that it was part of their life. They were talking about it as if it was a part of their life. It's not that it's just another story and just another film. So they knew, they grew during the process of the film, and so for me, I'm in that kind of maybe school for the moment. I'm more interested in that. I don't know if I will change. I mean, it's a question of also maturing and seeing things differently and having a different perspective in life. But for now, that's what I'm trying to do, and I'd like to push it even more. That's why. Yes, and that's why it was also. Everything was so organic. We had to do the film at home to be able to do that. At home, in the sense that, yes, it was not done in the classical structure of making a film at all. I mean, sometimes we would not even know what we were going to shoot the next day. It was a complete mystery for us, and we would really wait for the end of the shooting day to just have our small meeting and decide, so, okay, what are we going to do tomorrow? And I like this. I don't think I can ever fit again in the more traditional way or structured way of making a film. I like this freedom. It doesn't have to be so structured and so rigid. At least it doesn't have to be this way for me, and I like this freedom.
On vous a demandé d'arrêter les téléphones, si vous voulez. La dernière question.
Last question?
Khaled, le jour, Liban.
I come from Lebanon. I would like to thank you for this magnificent film and for having been the voice of those who are voiceless. My question is for Khaled MOUZANAR. In this voice, you have a lot of music, and I'd like to know how you were involved in the film, maybe to a greater degree than in other films. This film is a bit like a documentary. Nadine wanted things to be as truthful as possible. It was therefore very difficult to intervene from a musical stance. You couldn't heighten the sense of drama, you couldn't lie, because music helps you to lie. It helps you to say something that's not just the bare truth. So we went through all different stages, we tried all sorts of musics out, and then as a producer, I had to, at one stage to remove all the music from the film to see what it looked like. And it also works without music. Subsequently, I think we managed to strike a happy balance. There are moments of extreme truth, like in a documentary, and there are very poetical moments as well, when music takes over and the characters' dreams are expressed in a very poetic manner. You have this mixture between documentary truth and poetry, and I believe it's very beautiful. And it's worked out extremely well. For me, it was very difficult, though. I love music, I love melody, and as soon as I put music to these very real people, somehow it didn't sound harmonious. Thank you.